Welcome back, everybody. We are going to start with Unit 8, reducing your carbon footprint. That's what we're going to talk about in this unit. Awesome. Let's see what the focus on the topic brings. Number 1, look at the photo. Is this something happening now, in the near future, or in the distant future? What do we see here? A lot of clouds. Very dry. Only a few plants. Not looking good. There's nothing around there. I don't like it. Super quiet. What's going on? Over the past 100 years, temperatures and weather patterns around the world have changed. There are more storms, floods, and extreme temperatures. What extreme weather have you heard about or experienced? Anything you've been in or heard about? And number 3, scientists believe that climate change is caused by global warming. Global warming is an increase in temperatures all over the world. What do you think might be some of the causes of global warming? Okay, write that down so we can talk about this when we meet each other in class. Yes, very good. Now we're going to go to listening 1, living small personal carbon footprint. We are, of course, going to look at the words for today in bold. Greenhouse gases, transport, resources. And then we have some other words on the next page, which are generations, collectively, consumption, drop in the bucket. Read and listen to the article about how our lifestyle can affect global warming and notice the bold-faced words. Okay, before we do this, it's always important that we predict. Remember, predict what the listening will be about. By predicting, we're looking at the topic and the purpose of the audio. And we want to figure out what type of audio is it. Is it a monologue? Is it a dialogue? Is it what type of audio is this? And from there we will have a better focus on what to listen for. And remember to take notes while you listen. Okay, let's start.
Your personal carbon footprint is the amount of carbon dioxide, CO2, that you put into the air when you drive a car, fly in an airplane, or use electricity made by burning coal or gas. CO2 and other greenhouse gases have a serious impact on the environment. They make Earth warmer, causing climate change. Even the food you eat affects your personal carbon footprint. A diet that includes a lot of meat creates a bigger footprint, while the footprint of a vegetarian diet is smaller. This is because a lot of resources are used to raise animals and transport meat from the farm to your table.
Here we see the pie chart, foods, sources of greenhouse gas emissions: 30% red meat, 10% chicken, fish, and eggs, 11% fruits and vegetables, 11% cereal and carbs, 18% dairy, and 25% for snacks, drinks, and oils. And we see 2 pictures: install solar panels to make electricity for your house, and grow vegetables in a raised bed in your garden. Those are ways to reduce your personal carbon footprint.
What can we do to protect the environment for future generations? Collectively, we must reduce our energy consumption. Start with simple changes to reduce your own carbon footprint. For example, skip a serving of meat each week. It may seem like a drop in the bucket, but it's equal to driving 320 miles, 515 kilometers in a car. Ways to reduce your personal carbon footprint. Install solar panels to make electricity for your house. Grow vegetables in a raised bed in your garden. Protect and plant trees. Dense forests around the world are being cut down to make room for farms. This causes a faster increase in greenhouse gases. Trees have a positive impact on climate by taking CO2 out of the air. Forests take in nearly 40% of human-made CO2.
Exactly. Okay, complete the definition. Circle the best answer. We've got questions 1 until 10, and it's all about the vocabulary. Go ahead, you can pause your video and answer this. That brings us to previewing, and we know when we preview, we try to get the type of audio and the purpose, and then know our focus as in what to listen for. Here we see a picture. Julia Peters is trying to leave a small carbon footprint. She describes her life in a podcast. That looks funny. Okay, listen to an excerpt from Julia's podcast. Which topics will she mention in the podcast? I'd like you to predict that.
My name is Julia Peters, and I live in Portland, Oregon. It's important for me to live with a small personal carbon footprint because I realize that there are lots of people sharing this earth and lots of people that will come after us. It's my responsibility to protect it and make it better, to live as small as I can so that it doesn't affect future generations.
Very good. Okay, which topics will she mention in the podcast? What do you think? So you can choose multiple answers from A to F. Go ahead. That brings us to the main ideas. We're going to listen to the whole podcast. We're going to look again at your predictions and see how your predictions helped you. Here we're going to listen for main points. So before we do that, please annotate every question and answer choice. So while you're listening, you only focus on those keywords in order to be able to keep up and hear the answer. Go ahead. You can annotate first. Numbers 1 until 5.
Hey, come on in. Welcome to my house. My name is Julia Peters, and I live in Portland, Oregon. It's important for me to live with a small personal carbon footprint because I realize that there are lots of people sharing this earth and lots of people that will come after us. It's my responsibility to protect it and make it better, to live as small as I can so that it doesn't affect future generations, their ability to live well and healthily on the planet. We're in my house today, which is a small house, but we try to do the most with what we have. Our yard is almost all used for growing food. So you have to make your way through the jungle here. Here in the backyard, you can see it's not much of a yard. There's not much grass. We've taken out most of the grass to put in raised beds so that we can grow more of our own food. Right now, with it being spring, early summer, we have a lot of things that we grew from seeds inside the house. But if you were here in August and September, hopefully this would be really full with lots of tomatoes, basil plants, squash, all kinds of things. We try to grow as much of our own food as we can because it reduces our carbon footprint. If we grow it on our own property, we don't have to go to the store and get it, and then the store buys it from someplace. For the average American, food on your plate has traveled 1,500 miles. That obviously is a huge environmental impact when your food gets transported from so far away. We also have chickens as a way to reduce our impact. We eat mostly vegetarian. A lot of our protein comes from beans, but also from eggs. We have 6 chickens. Hi, girls. They lay eggs, and in the summertime, they lay more. So right now, we get about 4 eggs a day. Another thing that we try to do on site is to create our own energy. We have solar panels on our roof, and in the summertime, they produce about enough energy to power our house. Obviously, energy that doesn't come from our solar panels, we have to get from an energy company, but a lot of power in the United States comes from coal. And coal has a huge environmental impact. If we don't reduce our coal consumption, the average temperature of the earth will go up by 1 to 2 degrees. So it's a really critical time to think about how we get our power. Our house is a small house and it's 3 small bedrooms, and we have 4 people living here. And that's another way we try to reduce our footprint, is by dense living. If I were going to live in this house by myself, I would still use energy for the lights, to heat it, to run the refrigerator. By having 4 people, we are collectively using almost the same amount of energy, but it's split by 4 people instead of each person living in their own apartment or house. By sharing more, by living together and sharing resources, that's another way we try to reduce our footprint and limit what we use. For some people to say that small personal efforts are just a drop in the bucket, that they don't really have an effect, I can understand that. That makes sense. That how does one person out of 6 billion have an impact? And I think there are a few things about that to remember, is that the more people that do it, it's not just one drop, it's a lot of drops, and that can make a change.
It's a very good topic to think about, people. Okay, take your time to answer this. Go ahead. That brings us to the details. You can listen to it again, and all the statements here contain some false information. So I want you to cross out the parts that are untrue and write the corrections. For example, number 1, the speaker's name is Julia Smith. That is wrong. It's Peter. So just cross it out and correct it. And if you're confused, you can listen to the audio again. Okay, please answer and or check numbers 1 until 9. Go ahead. That brings us to making inferences, inferring contrast from context. A speaker may indirectly express a contrast between 2 situations. The listener can infer the contrasting ideas based on the context. Now, in the listening, Julia implies that her life is different from the lives of most Americans. Notice the bold-faced words. Let's listen to that part.
Here in the backyard, you can see it's not much of a yard. There's not much grass. We've taken out most of the grass to put in raised beds so that we can grow more of our own food.
Exactly. So Julia is implying that her yard is different from most other yards and that most Americans have grass instead of raised beds. So she shows a difference or a comparison which is implied, which is not directly stated, but we can figure that one out from what she's saying. I want you to listen to the excerpts. Julia explains what she does and implies what most Americans do, and I want you to complete the chart. So we have the one part where it states what Julia does, and the other one what most Americans do. We're going to listen to excerpt 1.
We try to grow as much of our own food as we can because it reduces our carbon footprint. If we grow it on our own property, we don't have to go to the store and get it, and then the store buys it from someplace. For the average American, food on your plate has traveled 1,500 miles.
Yeah, you can hear the comparison there. Excerpt 2.
Our house is a small house, and it's 3 small bedrooms, and we have 4 people living here. And that's another way we try to reduce our footprint, is by dense living. If I were going to live in this house by myself, I would still use energy for the lights, to heat it, to run the refrigerator. By having 4 people, we are collectively using almost the same amount of energy, but it's split by 4 people instead of each person living in their own apartment or house.
So good. Okay, you can fill that out. Awesome. That brings us to expressing opinions, where you state your opinion using PEEL, point, explanation, evidence, and linking back, or RL, which is assertion, reasoning, evidence, and linking back. Number 1, what do you think about Julia's way of living small? Would you want to live like she does? Why or why not? Number 2, are Julia's efforts just a drop in the bucket, or do you think that her actions can have an impact on global warming? And number 3, in what ways is Julia's lifestyle different from the way people live in your home country? In what ways is it similar? Do you think that living like she does would work here in Indonesia or in Bali? Okay, answer these questions, write it down so when we meet each other in our next lesson, we can talk about this and you can tell me what you think. Awesome beans. So, what did we do today? Okay, we went over the vocabulary. Yeah, then we previewed for our audio and went over main points and main ideas, trying to grasp them while listening to an audio, understanding details in an audio, and making inferences about inferring contrast from context when a contrast is made by a speaker but it's not directly stated, and expressing our opinions using PL or RL. Very good. You are amazing. I'm going to see you very soon. God bless you. Bye.